Hello there and welcome. This video is about roundabouts. Now roundabouts seem to confuse a lot of students and cause quite a lot of worry when they first start training. There's no need for roundabouts to worry you, because if you know the highway code well and know some of the basics to get everything right, you'll find that they're very easy to deal with. So please stay watching and I will give you some hints and tips to help you make roundabouts very easy during your training. So one of the areas that creates most problems for students when dealing with roundabouts is short or poor observation. We should be scanning the road well ahead and looking from left to right, as well as rear observations on the approach. The sooner we can identify the road signs, the road markings, the layout of the road, the easier it is to get ourselves at the correct position, at the correct speed, to deal with a roundabout safely. So here we have the first sign, showing us the primary routes on the roundabouts. We see there's another road sign and that gives us the secondary routes. So if we were looking early enough, we've already got two opportunities to work out in our mind what we're going to do and how we're going to deal with it and to plan our routes. By looking well up the road, we also start to see the roundabout early, so we can start equating this with what we've seen on the road signs to what's actually on the road. And you should of course try and look beyond the roundabout as well as you approach, because there may be hazards beyond the roundabout that may have an effect on where you're going or the speed that you decide to leave the roundabout. So as you approach that roundabout and get closer, you should keep scanning, and these arrows show you should be looking left and right, sweeping across, so you're getting plenty of information about the layout of the road and the position, movement and speed of other road users. But if you only start looking at the roundabout in any detail just as you're arriving towards the give way line, then you're going to be on the back foot, because everything will come as a big surprise to you. Okay, so the next part of observation skills are using the road signs to your advantage. So roundabouts always have road signs on the approach, and you can see there that the circle with the gap in it shows that you have to turn to the left and there is no right of way or route to the right. So when using these road signs in training, always work on the clock system. This is useful because basically from your entry onto the roundabout, any exit up to and including 12 o'clock is generally using the left lane or a left position on the approach. But for any exit beyond 12 o'clock and back to a U-turn at 6 o'clock, it will be a right hand lane or a right position approach. And this is something that people often get flustered about, is which lane do I get in? Whilst there are local routes and sometimes there are choices of lanes for going ahead, this is a standard starting point to keep you safe. You will sometimes notice there are short stubby exits shown on the road sign. These are minor routes shown on the major route sign. The major routes are much thicker and more easily identifiable. Very often the minor routes are shown in more clarity on a second road sign. So when being given directions during training, instructors are likely to use these phrases that you see here. So for the first exit, it will be take the first exit, or take the first exit left, or sometimes just a simple turn left. A second exit to the left could be described as take the second exit or take the second exit left. When following the road ahead, it could be described as that, or sometimes take the third exit or the third exit ahead. You will never be given instructions to go straight on at a roundabout, because you have to go around it. And when turning right, exit numbers will be given, and very often the phrase to the right. And that helps you from the word go, because when you hear that, you know you should be positioning to the right on the approach or using the right lane. So you can now see from the road sign we've formulated a picture in our mind, and as we approach the road we now start plotting the exits as we approach. This also helps us. And as we go around the roundabout, if you've been given a specific exit number, you can count them off as you go around. So you just count them off in your head. There's no need to get an exit wrong if you work in this way. And you can see here that as we approach this roundabout, we just dominate the appropriate lane that we intend to use. So the right lane would be to go to the fourth exit, The left lane would be used for exits 1 to 3. To use roundabouts, we will use a system. This is the same system you will be taught through all of your training to deal with junctions and every hazard. And it is usually OSM PSL. Rear observations, signal manoeuvre, position, speed, look. So as we approach the roundabout, we take effective rear observations. That will be checking the mirrors and considering lifesavers as necessary. We then consider use of a signal and give the appropriate signal if necessary. We then do the manoeuvre, so we take up the correct road position. It is important that before changing road position you update your rear observations, and you can consider a lifesaver at this point. You then regulate your speed to the appropriate speed, and this can be done at the same time as road positioning. And you look towards the roundabout to assess, make a decision and act on what you see. You should be looking and scanning the roundabout at the earliest available opportunity, and that is a process that will go all the way through using the roundabout. As you enter the roundabout, you keep a good awareness up. You would continue to use the system in taking rear observations, signalling, considering your position and your speed, and looking ahead to assess the road that you're going into. So this system just keeps constantly rolling, and that regulates how you use the road in a very systematic way, and that will keep you safe if used correctly. So let's have a look at the system in practice on the road. This video has been slowed down so we can talk through it in a bit more detail. So as we approach the roundabout, we're taking information from the signs and the road and the other road users. We check our mirrors, we take effective rear observations on the approach. Now we're going to follow the road ahead, third exit, so there's no signals on the approach. Considering our position, which is the left lane, the middle of the left lane, checking our speed and reducing. We're looking up at the hazards, continuing to scan and repeating the system again, checking the rear obs, still don't need a signal, position remains unchanged, speed is reducing. Continuing to assess the roundabout, and yet again, checking the mirrors, we don't need a signal, position is unchanged, speed is reducing further. So we keep taking effective rear observations and effective observations of all around the roundabout. We're checking out where we're going, we're checking out what's behind us, and we're looking for a safe point to enter the roundabout. We must make sure the vehicle in front has gone before we commit. We must have somewhere to go. Effective rear observations, no signal required at the moment. Last check on the mirrors and away we go. So that's rear obs. Our signal will go on as we pass the junction before the one we want. So left signal goes on now. Right lifesaver to make sure no one's going to cut us up on the right hand side. We look ahead, position, centre of our lane, speed, acceleration, looking all the way up the road for the next set of hazards. Okay, so we'll now look at positioning on roundabouts in a little bit more detail. So generally speaking, if you have your own lanes, dominate the middle of your appropriate lane. But if you don't have your own lanes, then to turn left and to go ahead, you will generally position towards the left, and to turn right, you would generally position towards the right, just as you would do for normal junctions. So a left turn at a roundabout is generally very simple. We take effective rear observations, we use a left signal, we adopt the correct road position, reduce our speed, look for the gap, make sure our exit is clear, and ride on when safe. We then check our mirrors, turn the signal off, consider our position, consider our speed. You have to be careful that when taking second or third exits left, that you do not put your signal on the approach and wait until you are passing the exit before the one you want. Otherwise this could result in a vehicle pulling out in front of you. So at this roundabout we're going to turn left, and you can see there on the road sign we're going for Canterbury, so that's the second exit. There's a very minor exit, so we don't signal on the approach because that would give the wrong information. So I'm scanning the roundabout early using my rear ob, signal, position, speed, look routine. My signal goes on now. I check to the right to make sure the grey car isn't going to come over with me, and it's job done. Mirror, cancel signal and ride on.
So I'm going to follow the road ahead at this roundabout. So we position towards the left. Now there's no separate lanes here, so we just take a leftward position, the same way that you would for a standard road junction. It's quite a big roundabout, so I'm still going to use an exit signal and just check that my blind spot to the right there is okay. So as a general rule, when going ahead at a roundabout we should use the left lane, and when turning right at a roundabout we use the right lane, and we shouldn't be turning right from the left lane. Now this roundabout here, we're following the road ahead, and we're just looking at that road sign giving us the idea of what's going on. But because I'm going to turn right at the second roundabout, on this occasion I will follow the road ahead in the right lane. Now if I needed to change my mind I could do a lane change here, but I'm not going to. So it's a rear obs signal, position is good, speed reducing, and we're looking across, we're scanning the whole roundabout, keeping those mirrors checked of course. I'm going to turn right at the next roundabout, so I'm going to go directly into the right lane, and I've already seen the road sign, so left exit signal there. Now that sets me up nicely, and I'd already seen that road sign there, which gives me the information I need to turn right at the next roundabout. Now I'm looking across, local knowledge, there we go, there's a road sign there. I'm going to turn left at the next roundabout, so I'm going to check my mirrors, signal left, lifesaver, and directly into the left lane, and that sets me up nicely to turn left at this roundabout. Now I could have exited in the right lane and then made a lane change, but if you look well up and observe the road ahead correctly, you're making your life a lot easier, because if the traffic is busy you'll find it difficult to make that lane change, and in those circumstances you may have to take an exit at the roundabout that you don't want to, on grounds of safety. So at the roundabout we're going to turn right, and this roundabout has no lanes, so we're going to position towards the right in the same way that we do for a standard road junction. Right signal on the approach, left exit signal, left lifesaver to leave, and then cancel the signal as we leave the roundabout.
Okay, so at the roundabout we're going to take the third exit right. So we use our system on the approach. I've taken all round effective observations, effective rear observations. I've signalled in good time, and I'm keeping my head and eyes moving. I'm already looking across to the exit I want, I can already see it. There's the first. Keeping my mirrors checked, keeping my obs up. There's the second. So checking the mirror, left lifesaver, left signal, eyes up, take the exit safely. Let's just look at lifesavers on roundabouts in a little bit more detail now. It goes without saying that you should check your mirrors and keep your general awareness up all the time. But there are certain points on a roundabout where a vehicle can come round into your blind spot unseen and then work its way into a position where it could collide with you. And these lifesavers are designed to be put in a place so you can prevent that from happening.
So when turning left at a roundabout, we don't need any lifesavers in particular, but it's worth considering one on the approach if we need to move over towards the left in case there's a cyclist coming up on our left hand side, although generally speaking our mirrors will suffice. So here I'm just using my mirrors and good forward observations, but I don't see the need for any lifesavers at the moment. I must have 360 awareness before I move away, of course, making sure my exit is clear. So I don't want to be using lifesavers because I need to be focusing on what I'm doing. Now a lifesaver goes in there for a lane change between the roundabouts, and at this roundabout I'm going to do a U-turn. So I'm just going to keep aware of the vehicles to my left, being aware of the vehicles entering the roundabout, a lifesaver to check that no one's going to cut me up, and then I take any appropriate lane on the exit. So we're going to go ahead at this roundabout in the left lane. Biggest area of risk is to my right. Check that's clear. And leave the roundabout. Lifesavers are there to enable you to make a decision about your safety. They're not just a routine to be followed and then not do anything with that information. So if you see something that's going to cause you a problem, you need to be able to react to it and avoid the danger. So when we go ahead at a roundabout in the right hand lane, the most vulnerable area of risk is to our left, because that's where another vehicle can come alongside. So that's where the lifesaver will go in, and although I'm going ahead, I also plan to turn right if there's a problem. So my lifesaver goes in halfway round, we're safe to leave, and away we go. So at the roundabout I'm going to take the third exit to the right. If the exits are very well spaced out, you may wish to consider using more than one lifesaver. But it's important that you just keep your awareness up all the time. So I'm aware there's nothing currently to my left. That blue car is still there. Signal, just final lifesaver check, and away we go. So when turning right at a roundabout, the lifesaver is to our left, because that's where we have the spare lane and where somebody could come up into our blind spot and cause us a problem. So on multi-lane roundabouts, the same rules apply on lifesavers as they do if you haven't got lanes. It's the widest area of tarmac which is the highest risk, and that is what you have to be especially aware of. And if you have several lanes rather than just two, you may have to do lifesavers to both sides if the risk is very high. It's all about tailoring your observations so you're just filling in the gaps and being aware of where the highest risk to you is, so you don't get caught out. So when turning right at a roundabout, we have a thing called a bailout procedure. So we set ourselves up to turn right, but we need to be aware that sometimes we can't always complete that manoeuvre on grounds of safety, so we need to be prepared to carry on. So for example now, if I was to see a vehicle and I couldn't leave the roundabout, I'd just go around the roundabout again, and then I'll try again. So always be prepared to do that. Left lifesaver, it's all clear, left signal, leave the roundabout safely. Just because you want to do a manoeuvre doesn't mean it's going to be safe to do it. So always have a contingency plan, always be prepared to react. So when following the road ahead at a roundabout, we would generally use the left lane, and we will use a right lifesaver to make sure that it's safe to leave. Now if there is someone in your blind spot in that situation, you've got an alternative. You can slow down, or if you've got a larger bike with good acceleration, you can accelerate away. The whole point of the lifesaver is to give you information so that you can react to any potential threat and to make sure it is safe to leave the roundabout.
So when using roundabouts, we must use good lane discipline, as shown in the highway code. And whilst we may exercise good lane discipline, we must be very aware and ride defensively to take into account of those who don't use good lane discipline. Watch this black car on the left carefully. So as we approach the roundabout, we can assume that he's going to go ahead, and we also want to go ahead in the right hand lane, which is acceptable, but we need to be cautious. Notice how he straight lines the roundabout and cuts us up. So that could have been a collision had we have just gone ahead there without any thought for what he may have done. Straight lining a roundabout is an advanced technique and must not be done at CBT and Test training level. It must only be done when it's not going to inconvenience another road user as well, because doing it incorrectly, as you can see, has a very high risk of collision. So in the diagram here we can see that it is acceptable for two vehicles to go ahead at the same time when there are 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out, but we have to be very aware of what we have just seen, because if it goes wrong it's disastrous. We also need to be very aware that if that vehicle in the left lane decides incorrectly to turn right across our path, because that can also cause us a lot of trouble. When in this situation, it is best to just hang back a little bit to make sure that vehicle to your left is committed to going ahead, or to get past it before it can turn in front of you. Do not be alongside a vehicle at that critical point where it can turn carelessly into your path. So another area that we need to be very concerned about is large, wide, heavy goods vehicles or buses. These vehicles need a lot of extra room to negotiate roundabouts safely. So you must not get alongside them, because you will be at risk from being struck and the driver will probably not even realise. The narrower the lanes and the smaller the roundabout, the higher the risk will be to you. So when you approach a roundabout, always keep well back from a goods vehicle. So we can see this goods vehicle here. As we approach the roundabout, I intend to turn right, and I'm not sure where he intends to go. He's in the left lane, but I have to always expect the worst. So I'm going to hang back and see what happens. Now as he's slowing down quite a lot and he's heavy, he's unlikely to get away quickly. I decide at this point I can get away before him, so I can get through the gap safely, and that's because my motorcycle is powerful. But you may need to sit back and defer and not move forward into that space if there's any chance you could be caught alongside him. So let's look at mini roundabouts now. Mini roundabouts are generally identified as you come along the road by this circular blue and white sign. That blue and white sign gives you orders and tells you you must go around the mini roundabout. So legally you have to, the only exemption being if your vehicle is physically too large, which will never apply to a motorcycle. That means you must not ride on the white circle in the middle. You may ride on the white arrows, but you must consider that when riding a motorcycle that if the paint is raised or the road surface is slippery or wet, it may cause you a problem with your stability. Mini roundabouts are quite uncomplicated to deal with. When following the road ahead, we just take a nice natural line through and no signals are required. When turning left, we use a left signal on the approach and position towards the left like we would at a standard road junction. And to turn right, we use a right signal on the approach and position towards the right. When leaving the mini roundabout, it is normally sufficient just to cancel your signal, but you may wish to change the signal to an exit signal to show other road users you're leaving the roundabout, just as an assistance if they look a bit unsure. You do not require lifesavers on a mini roundabout, but you do need to have a good awareness, as with all road use, at all times. If you think a lifesaver would benefit you, then by all means use it, but generally the mini roundabout is too small to fit that in whilst trying to look in the direction of your travel.
So going ahead at a mini roundabout is very simple. We just take good observations on the approach, both forward and rear, and we just choose the best line through the roundabout. We don't need to be extreme with any of our road positioning here at all, and we don't need any signals, although we could consider an exit signal as we leave. So when turning left at a mini roundabout, checking the rear obs, checking the road ahead, the signal, positioning towards the left but not in the gutter, checking the mirrors as we approach, checking the area, and then just complete the turn. Mirror check, cancel signal, and away you go. So when turning right at a mini roundabout, very similar to turning right at a normal road junction. Taking effective observations all around on the approach, the appropriate signal, and positioning towards the right. Getting your speed, getting your gear all set. Giving way to traffic as necessary, keeping the eyes moving, don't just stare in one direction, checking the mirrors gently on, and then you can either use an exit signal to leave or just turn your signal off. Checking the mirrors, of course, to leave the hazard, and away you go. You just so need to keep aware of what people are doing around you. That is the key to your safety. If you are not situationally aware, if you are not constantly in that zone of alertness, that's when you will have problems. So roundabouts don't need to be complicated. They can be very straightforward if you keep your observations up. Notice what's going on around you, plan what you're going to do, and always have a contingency plan if things don't turn out as expected. So we're at the end of our video now, and I hope you've picked up some useful hints and tips for dealing with roundabouts. This is the sort of thing you'll be looking at on your CBT and your test training courses. Advanced training takes things onto another level and gives you a lot more options. So until next time, take care and ride safe. We'll see you again.